All right, this week we are going to be looking at bivariate data. Okay, bivariate data. When we talk about bivariate data, we're talking about data with two variables, right? So as you can see in our example below, um, let's see here. Our example below, we have history and zoography. All right, so two classes. And we're looking at students' grades in those two classes. We have 10 different students here. We use this data to put it on a scatter plot. And explanation here: a scatter plot shows a positive trend of y tends to increase as x increases, or y tends to decrease as x decreases. So our scatter plot is either going to increase or decrease, depending on the relationship between the two variables. All right. And sometimes the two variables don't have a relationship. And that means our scatter plot would just be all over the place, right? Now, a positive relationship would have a positive slope, and a negative relationship would have a negative slope. All right. A scatter plot shows a negative trend if one value tends to increase and the other tends to decrease. So, of course, and let me turn my pen on here. You should know that of course, this is a positive slope, right? This is positive slope. We already talked about that. And this one is a negative slope. Okay. So when we're looking at data and we put it on a scatter plot, right, we should look at the trend. Is it positive or negative? Okay. So looking here, this one obviously is a positive slope, right? We have our zoography, we have our history class, and we notice that if we plot the points, let's say history is X and zoography is Y. This point will be here, right? This is a 20 something and a 20 something in zoography. But notice if they got a higher grade in history, they also tend to have a higher grade in zoography, right? So these grades are pretty much positive correlation, right? They are one and one, right? They tend to affect each other. Now, of course, we know that classes don't really affect each other, but if you think about it, if a student has a really high average in math class, for example, they tend to have a high grade in English, right? They have high grades overall. Now, if they're a failing student, right, a failing in math, you will tend to probably fail in another subject. All right. Now, you may have a rare case where you have an outlier. You know, outlier is not on the line. As you can see, we could make this an imaginary line, right? As we have here, positive slope here, right? Now, you may have an outlier. For example, one, you may have a lower grade in history and a high grade in zoography. So you have a point somewhere up here, which will be an outlier. But most of the points are along this line, which shows that the two variables are pretty close to each other. All right. The line shows a positive slope, so it is a positive association. This would indicate that if you have a high history grade, you would also have a high zoology grade. So all we're doing this week is looking at the data and putting it on scatter plots and understanding the relationship between the two variables, or you can say a bivariate data, right?